Okay. Hi, Becky. How are you? Welcome to the show.
I'm great. Thanks for having me, Douglas.
Oh,
It's
my
great to be
pleasure.
here.
Thank you for coming on. So, I know you're here to talk about a book, and I was looking through your bio. Looks like you've done a lot of different things, and I think still are, yeah? You're not retired, right?
No, still working.
Still working.
I've had Gen Zer heading off to college, I think, in the fall, so I'm still working.
Okay. Well, that's probably a good excuse to keep working. So, what is it that you do right now? Because I see different things on here, and I'm not sure which one you're currently doing.
Yeah, so I'm phasing out of executive search. I've been running an executive search firm with some partners the last 20 years, and I'm moving out of that and have just published the book, The Career Masterclass for Women. So I'll be doing speaking, potentially some online offerings, and who knows, maybe another book or two.
Okay. Is this your first book,
It is.
published book?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
I see that it
And
came
it's
out well, just about a month ago in January.
yes. Yes.
What kind of reviews
Yeah.
are you getting?
Good reviews. It's been it was as you probably know, and many of your listeners and anybody who's written a book, it was a long haul to get there. So I'm a little bit behind on the marketing that I'd like to be doing, but grateful to have it up and we'll see where it goes.
Did you self-publish it or did you get a
I
publisher?
did. I
Okay.
did. Yeah,
How?
and that was an entire learning experience, another whole business, really. Learning every piece of it was, very similar to, taking on another business.
Well, I've had over 1,000 different people on this show, um, and many of them have been authors. Most of them, I think, and everybody's story of self-publishing is arduous. I've never heard anyone say, oh, it was easy, it was a breeze, no problem, because you take on all the responsibility yourself. If you get a publisher, but then getting the publisher is the arduous task. If you're lucky enough to get published, then they tend to do all the work for you, or at least a good chunk of it. But you pay for that too. So, uh,
Yeah,
what was the hardest part for you about doing self-publishing? I mean, what?
I think, gosh, it's such a great question too, because, if you've interviewed so many, you've probably had so many of these conversations. I love your word arduous because that's what it was. It was an arduous task. I've started and run maybe four or five businesses in my career. And I've done a variety of different things over the years. I didn't anticipate that writing a book was going to be as exhaustive as an effort and take so much work to research the steps that are involved and then try to get the people you needed on the assembly line at the time you needed them to keep the ball moving forward. But it was, I think, from the very beginning. I mean, I've learned a lot. It's not something I would tell anyone to go in, obviously, lightly. And I think people think today, oh, self-publishing, as you alluded to, it's going to be easy, it's going to be quick. And I did not find that at all. I mean, I started out, first you're caught in the whole writing and editorial kind of world, and I had to learn all of that and the different editors from copy editor, developmental editor to line editor, proofreader. So I didn't have any background in kind of that and really getting clear about, just something so basic as the table of contents and really getting your style and tone down and all of that. So there was all of that, but then there was now what, and is it ready to move into publishing or does it need this, and this? And so I had people along the way that were very, very helpful. And then I worked with people that I felt like I just lost track of what I was doing in it and ended up kind of swimming in it. So there was a lot of lessons learned there. And then, moving into the publishing side, as it was, you're thinking about what you're going to do when it comes out. So you're already starting to think about the marketing side and what you've got to get laid up there. But the steps of the publishing from, the ISBN numbers to getting the book design done, to what type of paper that you're going to use to, where you're going to sell it, the commissions, the percentages, the royalties, the price point, the marketplace. It was a lot. And, I'm still finishing up some of those things still. And then now technically in a perfect world, right? You've got your author website up, you've got all your marketing in place, and maybe 6 months before you've got people reading and doing your reviews, and you don't realize that that's important to have before it actually launches. So I felt like the entire time I'm constantly running behind. Certainly when you get through something like that, a learning curve, if you were to do it a second or third time, it's not going to be quite as arduous, and you will know where kind of some shortcuts might be. But no, it is not an easy effort. So I'm like, anybody who's gone through it and completed it, I just am in awe of that they got it done, because it's the idea of doing it isn't quite as simple as what you see on ads or people say.
Well, no, I mean, you can just write something and throw it up on the Amazon website, but that's not going to get you very far. You need to do it properly, like you said, with a cover design, with an editor, with all of that. Because I know of no one who takes this seriously and would just throw up their first draft. You really can't do that, even as brilliant of a writer as you might want to think you are. I don't mean you specifically, but just generally. No, that's like the first mistake that people make when they self-publish is they'll just do it once, read it through. Yeah, okay, that's fine. Because you never find your own mistakes when you read your own word.
Yeah, I mean, it was painstaking how many times I went through the manuscript, and, like you had mentioned, and I don't consider myself, I would never have kind of considered myself to be any great writer. I just felt like I had content that in terms of just, the subject of career management, I had content that I felt was not only tips, tools, strategies, and tactics that would help people, but, really was derived from either mistakes I made along the way, or decisions I made, or others that I coached and placed in jobs and interviewed over the years. And so seeing a lot of those same kinds of things, I felt like, this is, a way to give back in a sense, but a way to kind of put it all together in a guide. And in this case, I chose to kind of focus on women for this particular one, but the concepts of it in terms of managing your career today, I think, are universal, whether it's, a college graduate, or, somebody semi-retiring or entering the workforce after having been home, but all of those types of things. So, I had to just really kind of get clear on what the content was that was going to be most helpful. But then when you bring in the idea of, being an author and writing and getting that right, that's just another whole, ball game too. So.
Well, I was going to ask you about the book, and I think you've kind of started talking a little bit about the content. So it's a sort of collection of your experiences over the years that you've worked. Is it told in that way, or is it textbook way?
Yeah. It's a combination of both. Okay. So there are certainly some chapters that are a little bit more textbooky way, in a sense. But then, for example, I talk at the beginning about job security and vulnerability today, and I point out the choices we have as employers, right? Whether it's working in, for a private company, a public company, nonprofit, the government, all of the different, the choices we have as a platform of an employer, and then, the job functions and things we choose. So that's a little bit more textbooky, if you will. But then I share my stories, and I started out in higher education, and then I fell into human resources. Then I started a sports marketing agency. Then I ran a couple of online career centers, and then an executive search firm. And so I share some of the lessons and things that I learned through those experiences, and I bring that out in some of the chapters where I think it was relevant. But then I also use, after having interviewed and placed hundreds of executives over the years, you in dozens of industries, there were times to pull in some of those stories that, obviously would help the reader a little bit more there. But I talk about vulnerability, job security, where things are at today, the marketplace. And then, really thinking about, in my concept, there is really just, my message is really wanting people to understand that there is no job security, whether you're running your own business, whether you're working for somebody else, there isn't. And so what is important is, and we're living in this volatile time. I talk a little bit about geopolitical risk, the economy, all of the cost of living continuing, the average time we're in jobs today. So all of that, and really to try to wake up and get the mindset thinking that I better kind of get in the driver's seat of my career here before somebody else does. We have AI, quantum computing, everything moving at an accelerated pace. So it's all of those types of things that, to set it up. And then the second part of the book is I have 4 sections in the book, and the second part is what I call the steep qualifications. And that I came up with as a framework for people to easily kind of think about their career in terms of both managing and building a career. And that's STEEP qualifications stands for skills, tools, education, experience, and personal qualities. And so whenever, I am coaching or working with an individual and they're talking about their career, where they are and maybe where they want to go, that's the first place we're going to take a look. Is let's take a look at what your STEEP qualifications are today, how you got to where you are today, and then where you want to go. And I think it's managing a career today has become very complex and people are overwhelmed. It's one of the highest areas of stress today. So people are thinking about, either they're frustrated with applying for jobs and not hearing back, or they're questioning, what do I do online? How do I do my LinkedIn profile? How do I do this? How do I market and package myself if I want to make a career transition? Should I start a business now or should I not? All these kinds of questions. So that's the second part of the book. And then the third part of the book is navigating the course. So the how to leverage particular interviews, what to think about in terms of, the basics of salary negotiating, onboarding and exiting, thinking about the first day on the job and the last day on the job, those types of things. And then the last one is changing course. So, future success, things like that, principles for success, but also thinking about, if you are questioning, do you want to run your own business? Where does that fall? And things you should be thinking about before making that decision, or things you should be thinking about before making a career transition. But it's a combination of all of those things.
Well, your timing was perfect because we have exactly 45 seconds left
Okay.
to wind this up. So the book has been released. I said it was January 14. And I guess the last question is, do you have a website that you want to give out?
Sure. Thank you so much. It's BeckyHeidesch.com. So it's just like it's spelled, Becky and Heidesch, HEIDESCH.com. And the book is there, and you can find out more information as well, too.
Okay, we'll put it up on the screen. And you said that you may be writing another one? Is this going to be
we'll
a part
see.
2?
It won't be this year, but if it's going to happen, it'll be next year.
Well, I imagine there's a lot of information that you probably didn't get in the first book, right? Would this be like a part 2, a continuation, or would it be on a completely different topic?
I think it would relate to it, but I may target it towards a different audience. So I don't know, I see a lot of my daughter, I see a lot of young people struggling today with what they want to do. I think, we are moving at a faster rate. The average number of jobs we're expected to have is 12, and average number of careers between 4 and 7. So things are changing. And I think, depending on where and if I can provide help or value to another demographic, that might be an answer too.
Well, Becky, thanks so much for coming on the show. It was nice chatting with you. Best of luck with
You
your
too.
work.
Yes, thank you. Thanks for having me.